I think that once more this war showed that the US will not bring security and stability for the regional countries. We have no hostilities with our neighbors. The fact is very clear that we are targeting the US bases, US interest, and US assets in reciprocal action. In response to the representative of the United States, I only want to refer to some remarks of the US President, which has initiated this war of aggression against Iran. On 21st of March, he threatened to hit and obliterate Iran's power plants. On 30th of March, he escalated these threats, vowing to blow up and completely obliterate critical infrastructure, including power plants, oil facilities, Khark Island, and desalination installation. On 1st April, he declared his intention to bring Iran back to the Stone Age, explicitly threatening to strike all electric generating facilities. On 5th of April, he again openly threatened to target civilian infrastructure, stating that Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day. There will be nothing like it. And 2 days resorted to a language that is not only deeply responsible, but profoundly alarming, declaring that the whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back. Such rhetoric is unfitting of any political leader, let alone the head of a permanent member of the Council entrusted with the maintenance of international peace and security. I congratulate Bahrain's presidency for this month. The draft resolution put before the Council was flawed, factually, legally, and politically. The draft is entirely one-sided, biased, and indefensible. It distorts the realities on the ground by falsely attributing responsibility to Iran, the victims of the aggression, while deliberately ignoring the root causes of the current crisis. The text unjustifiably and misleadingly portrays Iran's lawful measures in the Strait of Hormuz, which have been taken in the exercise of its inherent right of self-defense in accordance with the UN Charter, as threats to international peace and security. At the same time, the text seeks to legitimize subsequent unlawful action by the aggressors and their allies under pretext of safeguarding freedom of navigation and maritime safety in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. Iran's lawful actions cannot be viewed in isolation from the broader context of ongoing aggression against its territory and sovereignty. Attempts to portray them as threat to international peace and security are therefore legally unfounded and devoid of any credibility. Mr. President, the objective of this draft is obvious: to punish the victim for defending its sovereignty and vital national interests in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, while providing political and legal cover for further unlawful acts by the aggressors. Had this draft been adopted, it could have opened the door to dangerously broad and abusive interpretation that could be used to justify further use of force and unlawful actions in clear violation of the UN Charter and international law. It is deeply regrettable that neither Resolution 2817 nor this draft nor the statement of certain Council's members contain any reference to the initiators of the aggressions or the destabilizing conduct in the region, as well as the root causes of the current situation. This clear omission reflects a persistent pattern to politicization and double standards with the Council. Let me be clear, this text would only embolden the United States and the Israeli regime to continue in their unlawful actions and atrocious crime while shielding from accountability. In substance, this was a United States draft introduced under the other names. Today, the President of the United States again resorted to language that is not only deeply irresponsible but profoundly alarming, declaring that, quote, "the whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back," unquote. It is regrettable and alarming that while in full view of international community, the President of the United States shamelessly and brazenly issues threats to destroy all civilian infrastructure in Iran, including bridge, power plants, and energy facilities, by setting a deadline, and openly reveals this intent to commit war crimes and crime against humanity. The penholder of the draft resolution and its supporters have rushed to bring forward such an entirely politicized text for a vote. Its adoption would have set a dangerous precedent, normalizing the use of force based on the vague and unsubstantiated allegation, undermining the integrity of the UN Charter and highlighting the risk of the broader regional and international escalation. For these reasons, we consider the draft legally indefensible, politically unbalanced, and strategically destabilizing. We express our appreciation to China and the Russian Federation for their responsible conduct, for their constructive approach, and for exercising the veto in a manner consistent with the principle of the UN Charter. Their action today prevented the Security Council from being misused to legitimize aggression. In fact, Russia and China ensured the Security Council would not be instrumentalized to legitimize aggression, and in doing so, they stood firmly on the right side of the history. We acknowledge and thank Pakistan and Colombia abstained, recognizing the serious implication the draft would have had for regional peace and stability. By contrast, those who supported the draft resolution chose to put the blame on Iran while remaining silent on the ongoing war crimes and criminal and the terrorist attack being committed by the United States and Israel against civilians and critical infrastructure in Iran. Their position and their votes today reflect a clear double standard. It exposes a stark gap between their stance commitment to the UN Charter and international humanitarian law and their conduct in practice. Such selective application of legal principles not only undermines their credibility, but also calls into question the good faith of the invocation of international law and the UN Charter. Mr. President, we categorically reject all unfounded and politically motivated allegations against my country made in this meeting. These claims lack any legal basis and serve only to divert attention from the realities on the ground, namely the illegal and savage war launched by the United States and the Israeli regime against Iran. Their purpose is clear: to whitewash the atrocious and war crimes committed by the US and the Israel against the people of Iran, and to obscure and deflect from serious violations committed against the Iranian people. Having said, Mr. President, I would like to make the following points. First, the Islamic Republic of Iran, as a responsible state committed to the United Nations Charter and the international law, has consistently upheld freedom of navigation and maritime security in the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Gulf of Oman. For decades, the Strait of Hormuz has remained open to all vessels, with freedom of navigation and maritime safety effectively maintained. Currently, the Strait of Hormuz remains open. However, the ongoing unlawful and brutal war waged by the United States and the Israeli regime against Iran has created a dangerous situation that has directly affected maritime safety in the region. In accordance with its inherent right of self-defense, Iran has taken necessary and proportionate measures to prevent aggressors and their supporters from using the Strait of Hormuz for hostile purposes. As a coastal state, Iran has restricted passage for vessels linked to those acts of aggression in accordance with international law. Therefore, vessels associated with the aggressors don't qualify for innocent passage and will be treated in accordance with applicable legal frameworks. Non-hostile vessels not involved in or supporting aggressions may continue safe passage in coordination with relevant authorities in Iran. Responsibility for any disruption or escalation in this vital waterway lies with the United States and Israel, whose actions have undermined regional stability and endangered freedom of navigation. Lasting stability depends on ending aggression and fully respecting Iran's legitimate rights and interests. Second, Iran has consistently pursued to resolve differences through political and diplomatic means, including with parties that have had serious disputes, in order to prevent escalation into conflict. This unjustified and unwarranted war was imposed on Iran by the United States and Israel. In June 2025, Iran was engaged constructively and in good faith in negotiation when it was attacked on the basis of unfounded allegations concerning its peaceful nuclear program, allegations that were later followed by contradictory claims that such capabilities had already been destroyed. The current aggressions was likewise initiated by the United States and the Israeli regime at the time when Iran, for a second time, was actively engaged in negotiation and an agreement was within reach. Once again, diplomacy was undermined and ultimately betrayed by the United States. Claims regarding Iran's nuclear program are baseless and unsubstantiated. For over 2 decades, the Israeli regime has repeatedly alleged that Iran is on the verge of developing nuclear weapons. Yet, no credible evidence has been presented to support this assertion. As a committed state party to the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, Iran has consistently rejected nuclear weapons and has clearly condemned the use of all weapons of mass destruction. Iran has also accepted one of the most rigorous verification and inspection regime of the International Atomic Energy Agency, reflecting its stated position that its nuclear program is exclusively peaceful. Yet, within 9 months, 2 wars of aggression have been imposed on Iran by the United States. An NPT depository and Israel, a regime outside the NPT. In both cases, Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities were attacked. The Security Council, the IAEA Board of Governors, and the Director General of the agency have failed even to condemn these unlawful acts, let alone prevent the recurrence. This inaction has emboldened the aggressors. U.S. officials now openly speak of targeting nuclear facilities, with the U.S. permanent representative even stating that an attack on the Bushehr nuclear power plant is not off the table. Such reckless threats are a direct consequences of international inaction and have severely undermined credibility of the United Nations and the IAEA. Since the start of this unlawful war on 28 February, multiple attacks have been carried out against Iran's nuclear facilities, including repeated strikes in and around Natanz, Bushehr, Arak, and Ardakan.